Good morning, everybody. Mona Zoet here again, and today I'm here with Antonio De Lorenza, Michael Gibbs, and Abhishek Chatri to discuss about survive and thrive when you actually really going to be having a startup to scale up, and what are the pitfalls and what should you do and what you should not do. So, with that said, I'm going to give you the word to Antonio and have a great session, guys.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mona. So, good morning, good afternoon, good night to all of you who are dialing in from various parts of the world. I'm Antonio Di Lorenzo, and I'm joined by Abhishek Chatterjee and Michael Gibbs. Michael, you gave a keynote a little bit earlier. You said digital transformation is dead. For those of you that might be as old as I am, you might remember Lenny Kravitz saying rock and roll is dead. The
Yeah.
reality is rock and roll still lived on. So I think digital transformation still has a role to play, but I think your emphasis there is correct, right? It's about moving on because it's about new solutions, and digital transformation should now be BAU or business as usual. What we're seeing in the RegTech community is that RegTech is growing, and this really truly nascent industry has come to maturation at this point. And I'm really happy to have both of you guys here who represent two very mature and embedded companies. Um, and we're here to talk to you about what it means to survive and thrive. So perhaps I can begin with you guys saying good morning and talking a little bit about what Tukitaki and Surestep do. Maybe over to you, Abhishek.
Thank you so much, Antonio. And Mike, it's wonderful to meet you as well. So I'm glad to be part of the session. Hi, I'm Abhishek. I'm founder and CEO of Tukitaki. I'll start with the name because people ask me what that means. It means hide and seek in my language. We are essentially seeking out hidden patterns and information hidden in noise and data. We are a financial crime software company. We helps fintechs and banks detect suspicious activities in a reactive as well as a proactive manner and help them to be regulatory compliant. A little bit about my background and Tukitaki. I was part of JP Morgan before starting Tukitaki. The journey has been almost 6 years now. We set up the company headquartered in Singapore, grew from just myself to currently now we are 100 plus people across five different countries, grew revenue of almost 10x over the last 6 years. And I'm very excited to share my journey and sort of discuss things not to do, which I think are the most important things that early stage companies should sort of follow. So, over to you, Anthony and Mike.
Hey, I can certainly second that about the things that you shouldn't do, right? So yeah, so Mike Gibbs, I'm the president and founder of Surestep. We are I guess, a very risk, GRC and ESG focused SI. We've been around for almost 15 years now. It's been good, no complaints. We have offices right now in Hong Kong and Singapore, New York, London, and Toronto at this point. And we've got people pretty much all over the planet at this point. So we get around. And fundamentally, what we do is we provide all kinds of advisory services around governance, risk, and compliance, around environmental, social, and governance. And a fair bit on the cloud side too. We're actually pretty good at that stuff as well, mostly because people kept handing it over to us because they didn't want to take responsibility for the people's data. So they ended up giving it to us and letting us wear the hat. But we've been doing this stuff for a long time now, and we've got a lot of experience at it, and pretty much all kinds of industry verticals and all around the world, and all kinds of size companies. Everything from, some of our clients, we've got 65,000 users in some of these individual clients, and others are 10, literally. So we really run the gamut, and it's all about just ensuring that you as a company have got a good start. But how do you not everybody's got 5,000 auditors or risk professionals in their organization. Some people can barely manage to have five or two or one person even. And we help companies, no matter how big they are, ensure that they've got at least some kind of starting point around governance, risk, and compliance and ESG, and ensuring that you've got the right tools and more importantly, the right internal processes and mindsets to go forward with it. So that's us in a nutshell. So that's me. So there we go.
So it's interesting because I think if I gave you guys 10 minutes to talk, you could talk 10 minutes about your companies. I mean, Abhishek, it's been 6 years. Mike, it's been 15 for you. Let's go right back to the beginning, right? We talk about starting and survival and the journey that's there. Some of us call them ramen noodles. Some of us call them Maggie mee. But the reality is that you are at one point struggling to get from point A to point B to be able to figure out how to give an elevator pitch, how to depict what you want to be doing for your customers, sometimes even selling stuff that may not fully exist to be able to then get the capacity to be
Vaporware.
delivered. So maybe during the course of that, can you remember and share with us one mistake that you wouldn't erase, right? Because we all make mistakes, and it could be a mistake that you would hope to erase too. But I think those some of those mistakes that we make that we don't want to erase really teach us quite a lot, right? Could have been an investor meeting, could have been a pitch that you guys gave, a sales pitch. Do you need a moment to think about this, or you got one? It looks like, Mike, you've got something in mind.
Sorting through so many mistakes, I'm trying to figure out where to.
But I think that's also a key point, right? It is mistakes, trial and error.
Yeah. Well, it's okay if you make lots. The key is not to make too many really big, egregious ones, right? The whole fail fast principle. I mean, I think for me, my biggest mistake when we first got started, we all thought, hey, we'll go make our own risk platform. How hard can it be, right? I mean, I was making software at the time. I'd come out of Adobe. I had all kinds of ability to do it, and I was so utterly naive about the whole thing. I really was. I look back now and I just shake my head. I had all kinds of stones and quite willing to walk into any boardroom and present what we had. Utterly clueless as to what the real effects were and how the corporate world worked. And I remember I walked into my first presentation was at one of the biggest banks in the world, actually, at their London headquarters. I knew some people, and some people brought me into a room kind of as a favor and said, yeah, let's see what you got. And, said they loved it. We love the platform. It's amazing. It's great. And I'm like, awesome, great. So where can you sign for millions of dollars? And, they kind of said, we can't buy from you. You got 4 people. Are you kidding me? So anyways, that was the end of I had to go back and do a strategic reshuffle. What that did, it really kind of opened up my eyes as to here's what the corporate world's really, really like, and no matter how much you might know what you're doing, the sheer size of your company constitutes a risk. And I think that's one common thing that anybody who's started a business has ever come up with is at some point, somebody's going to say, I don't know, you guys are kind of small. We're not sure if we want to work with you or not. And I thankfully earned that lesson really early on. So I didn't hurt my head too many times. So there you go.
So the lesson is size matters and age matters.
It does.
Abhishek, would you like to share something as well?
Sure. As I said, I started the conversation with things not to do, which are essentially my learnings along the journey. So number one is I'll start with people, because wherever a startup goes and not goes is a direct reflection of the team members, right? One of the things that we early learned on was that you need to hire right people at the right stage. That's super key. For instance, if you're growing from 0 to 1, then the type of people who would actually take you there are mostly generalists. But when you go from 1 million to 5 million, you need certain level of specificity in the people that you're onboarding. And from 5 to 15, there is a different sort of scale that you require. Being hiring people with just background from school or company will actually succeed doesn't really work. So taking that step back and really sort of defining the job description, it's very naive, but we don't do that. We make that mistake. We just see somebody, we think it's a fit, but after 6 months it's not a fit because he doesn't belong to that stage. Maybe he belongs to some other stage, but knowing that early on is super key, and that defines who you are. So one mistake I would really say is that spend time writing your job description, and I'm being very operational here because that's important, and really sort of lay down what you need and what is needed for the next 18 to 24 months. If that is clear, and then you hire somebody who fits that, irrespective of the company that they've worked with or the colleges that they've gone into, really makes a huge difference in how you scale. Now, you asked me things that a mistake that I wouldn't erase. I used to take a lot of time trying to figure that out, right? And used to take a lot of time. our investors, our team members were a little frustrated. Like, why am I spending so much time doing that, right? Just hire somebody and move on. But in reality is that, when we did that, right, and the scale that we saw in the last 2 3 years happened because these people that we took time, like even 6 months to hire, really made a difference. So one thing I would say is that as an early stage company, it's all about the people. Figure out what you need at this point of time. Don't think about the next 5 years. Think about 18 24 months and understand what is needed and hire that person. Even if it takes 4 months, it's okay, but do not hire people, because the other outcome of having somebody a year and not delivering can be fatal for startups.
Very, very, very insightful.
Very
Right?
wise
So
advice.
what we take away is size matters, age matters, people matter, and specificity matters in your operations, in knowing what you're doing. Maybe now let's zoom out from you guys to your contexts, your companies, right? I mean, here we're talking about surviving and thriving, scaling, growth. With so many entrants into the fintech world, into the RegTech world, and now specifically the RegTech world, where did you find that you could create points of differentiation for who you are in the market in comparison to who you were competing with? And maybe to throw in a little bit of spice here, and you don't have to take names, but maybe the nature of who you thought your most fierce competitor was, and maybe what you wanted to do to get past them to win the race.
Mhm.
Let's
Mike, you
go
want to
with
start with that?
Yeah, you can pick a victim. Go for it. So yeah, throw a dart at either one of us. It's all good. So I mean, I think for us, when we got into this, we, as previously mentioned, I certainly wasn't away. I wasn't afraid of hunting whales, I guess, as it were, right? And the reality of it is that I knew that going into those deep waters, there was going to be up against some pretty big competitors, and we found initially, my thinking was that, geez, we can compete against, Big Four, we can compete against, some of the top consulting firms in the world on the basis of agility, size, value for the money, right? And then what I found almost totally by surprise and much to my delight was the fact that, we found we could actually work with those guys a lot too, which was great. So we've had a number of very, very successful engagements with those kinds of companies. But my core tenets still kind of ring true. When we go into a customer, we provide an awful lot for the money, and we were very, very big on providing value and ensuring that when our clients engage us, that they're going to see either if it's on the enterprise side, significant savings, over what they're currently doing, in kind of the big old monolithic kind of way that they do things. Then they come to us, and all of a sudden we kind of like take all the wrappers off and get rid of all the junk, and everything works. And people get very excited about that, and they're far more efficient. They save money. They can do things quicker. And on the other end of the spectrum, the fact that people can engage with us and get the same kind of experience and the same kind of things that they would get from engaging one of these, large monolithic type companies to come in and kind of help them out. I mean, if you're a 25 person or 100 person or 200 person startup, you can't afford to go and get one of these big, companies to kind of come and help you. We can, and we're happy to scale to whatever is going to help you get there, because ultimately, we're mostly interested in helping companies be better, right? That's why we're here and what we want to do. So for us, it was really about agility, value, and those were areas that we felt we could compete on, and we've so far proven to be correct on that. And it's who knew providing value for your money was something people would want? I don't know. So anyways, so far it's been pretty good. So, but that's fundamentally it. Was all about, like, we knew we could be quicker and more agile and far more effective from a value standpoint, and it's worked well.
But that's interesting, right? So I mean, you say value, agility, size, sophistication, all of these things matter. But you said one key word, which, Abhishek, maybe I would like for you to try and incorporate into the way you see things in this, and that word is help, right? So help is interesting because you can also look at help as leverage, right? So what can you do in your ecosystem, in your strategy, in your plans to be able to help yourself? What can you use as leverage? I mean, we hear people have titles, and we hear terms like strategic partnerships or channel partnerships or growth hacking. How do you approach this from your side, Abhishek? And that component of help or leverage, however you want to put it, how have you, if you have, utilized channel partnerships in what you do?
I think it's a great segue to the discussion of partnership and strategic alliance, especially in our context, and I can share. But I'll take a step back and say that one of the key things for an early stage company, if you're going from, especially if you're going from 1 to 10 and then from 10 to 30 or whatever the number be, you need some sort of a growth hack that allows you to get that distribution process put in place, which allows you to get to that scale. Because at that point, neither you have that cash flow to build and hire a large sales force, nor you would have the proof points to raise a very oversized series B or C which is needed to scale. So you are in a very interesting situation at that point, where you know that you need that distribution power, but you wouldn't have the required cash flow to really scale that up. And that's where I think, you rightly pointed out, you need an help, you need some sort of a growth hack, and every company will have their own growth hack to go from 1 to 10 and 10 to 30, right? One of the growth hacks that for us, which we recently announced, was a strategic alliance with one of the largest payment processors in the world. The way we look at it is that, as you rightly pointed out, fintech is highly competitive, right? There are a lot of players, and even though everybody will bring in their product features or the values and others, but for customers who are seeing like five of same different things, it's very difficult to make a choice between A and B, even though your product is well differentiated in the market. So for us, it was very clear that we need somebody to actually be an influencer in this large gamut of customers that we are pitching, whom they would have already worked or know people or have relationships. That goes a long way in buying software or buying anything per se, right? If you are able to bring that trust, that confidence, that hey, I've bought something from them, I know them, they are referring, or they are part of that ecosystem, I will sort of try them or give it a try, even though the other company might not meet all the credentials in terms of they might not have like large number of people, or they might not have offices in certain regions, so here and there. So in our mind, right, early stage companies need to find a growth hack to be able to provide that confidence to its customer base when they don't meet all the criteria which is used by as a checkbox for the buyer that they're looking to go forward. This is where I think channel partners come into play. It could be system integrators, it could be data players, and for us it was a strategic alliance investor who invested significantly in the company. Now whatever that might be, whatever the the logistics and the structure might be, but what is important here is that you should be able to sort of utilize that large distribution channel that you're partnering to reach out to as many customers as possible, provide them the comfort that that strategic investor alliance channel partner is backing you, which gives them the comfort to sort of onboard you and give you a chance. That I feel, and I call it an unfair advantage, because if you can have such alliance with a partner, an investor, or whoever that might be, it just puts you almost 10x ahead than your competitors who are still trying to go one at a time. Instead of doing one at a time, you're doing n at a time, and you're removing out the nuances of selling to large institutions by adding that comfort factor. That will actually really sort of push you to the next level. That has happened for us, and but it doesn't happen like on one day. It's a process, but it really makes a difference in the long run.
But let
This is
me
great. It's like he just confirmed my entire keynote for me. It was perfect. Thank you very much. But again, you mentioned a number of times in that talking about the channel, right? You've got the confidence of your investors. You've proven to them that you know what you're doing and that you've got a program in place to manage. If you've got a serious investor behind you, I'm sure they did their homework. You've managed to prove to them that you're a safe company to work with. That in turn is providing confidence to your clients. They can trust you because you've earned that investor's trust. And it's all about trust transformation, right? So you've been able to grab onto that very quickly in terms of saying, all right. I mean, like I've seen your platform, so I mean, like it's beautiful. It's very easy to work with. It does things really, really well. If you haven't looked at Tukitaki, it's awesome. But the reality is that the what's really cool about this is that beyond that digital transformation of just making something like user friendly and user experience and so on, he's very much gone and engaged in that whole trust transformation already and earned that trust for his business, which is outstanding. I love having other people validate things when I say it. Makes me feel so much.
But that's exactly where I would like to go. And Mike, I'd love you to continue talking about this, right? So, I mean, we talked about strategic partnerships and this notion that, okay, fine, you have a distribution channel, but ultimately, what are you gaining from that benefits your customers, benefits yourself, or benefits your channel partners' customers? And I hear comfort, confidence, and then trust. So before I have you go on that, just looking at time, I'd like to remind the audience that the channel is open to be able to post questions if you'd like. But maybe just a couple of minutes from you, Mike, on this idea of trust. And absolutely, Abhishek, if you want to interject and throw something in, please do.
Yeah, just throw your hand up or whatever. I'll stop talking. That's all good. So, but the bottom line is, we've kind of come out of this whole world where everything was about governance, risk, and compliance, right? And it was a very buttoned down world, right? Where it was like, all full of auditors, all full of, risk professionals and so on. And the challenge with that was that it was very much an inward facing process, very inward facing. So, most of the time companies never spoke about their efforts in that area. Their failures very frequently came to light, data breaches, I mean, you could look at almost like every major financial institution in the world that had some kind of issue happen at some point or another, and other kinds of companies, but you'd have failures of, that whole Basel definition of op risk, for example, around process, people, policy failures, and so on. That's also people wanted to keep inside, right? And so that whole governance and risk process applied really only to the internal operations of an organization, very much in the whole, if we do this right, we won't get caught, or we won't do anything really bad kind of way. And where that's changed is that whole mechanism was put in place to ensure that, investors and regulators and stakeholders in an organization would trust it, right? Now they've got to extend that atmosphere, and that sphere of trust needs to be expanded outward from just internally within an organization. So, and the reason for that now is that, now people want to say, like, hey, where are you getting where are your outsourced people? Are they being treated well? I mean, 20 years ago, nobody would have dreamed of asking that question. 20 years ago, nobody would have said, like, hey, look, can you prove to me that you as an organization make diverse hires? Never would have happened 20 years ago. Somebody would have just said very gruffly, me too, probably 20 years ago, was said, I'm getting the best person for the job. I don't care what they are. I'm not going to make any, any concessions for anyone. I'm just going to whatever, right? But now people care about this a lot. People care about what you're doing with the environment. They care about what you're doing with people and your hiring practices and your outsourcing practices and just everything and how you handle yourself as an organization. And that is where that trust comes in now, right? And that's where things are so important that customers will buy from you if they trust you. Investors will invest in you if they trust you. You can take good care of your suppliers and your vendors. They're going to supply to you now if they trust you. And your employees are going to work for you if they trust you. And that's why trust has really kind of taken GRC out of the shadows, if you would, and kind of like put it out there in front of people, where now it's front and center. And you got to be able to prove.
Oops, I think we might have lost Mike there for a moment.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we've lost his connection. It's interesting because I had so many thoughts as he was speaking. One of them was around this idea that the transparency and honesty have become such a large part of how you put yourself out there and you enable that trust. Hi, Mike, we lost you for a moment. Like, I was going to interject and ask, transparency and honesty are really the enablers for how organizations, businesses are going to have to be able to bridge to their customer base. But in any case, we've got one question here, and this is for Mike. If you would begin a new business today, what would you do differently? Oh boy, it looks like we're having some connectivity issues. How about Abhishek? Same question to you.
And I'll just add on to one point before I answer that question is around trust. I call it Stockdale Paradox, where you need to sort of discuss your dirty laundry to internally as well as to your customers before they realize and find that the transparency and trust is broken. And you believe in your goal, but you need to discuss those dirty laundry. So I call it Stockdale Paradox, and it's one of the culture in Tukitaki. That's what defines us. But going back to the question, what would I have done differently? I think number one, um, what I would have done when if I would have started Tukitaki is spend more time on building our what we call as the ideal customer profile and segmentation well. When you are an early stage founder, you spend more time on products and less time on your ICP, ideal customer profile. Not go after the big whales, but focus on a segment who is going to buy now. So rewind 6 years, even though we grew almost 10x, but I think that spending a lot more time on the right ideal customer profile, not choosing the ones which seems interesting and big names, but choosing the ones that are going to pay now makes a huge difference. And I always quote a Snowflake story, which I think I heard from like publicly from the Snowflake CFO. They are some sort of a data warehouse at some point when they started, and everybody said that, hey, you go to banks because they are the ones that are going to pay. But when they spend a year or two, they realize banks are not their best customers, and then they did a survey and found out that gaming was their best customer base, and that sort of changed the way they sort of grew and their trajectory. So and my learning from there is that if I were to go back, I would spend a lot more time in identifying my customer base who can pay now, who can be my champion now is more important than getting big names, because that's where the growth sort of really starts, the feedback starts and sets the benchmark for your company to scale.
Wonderful. Well, look,
Sorry, guys. I need to step in here. We really need to wrap it up. So I would say one more minute, and then
yep, I was
we're
just
going to
going
go to the
to
next one.
thank Michael and Abhishek for your time this morning. Just to kind of sum up what we've done, focusing on the right customer profiles as you're growing is important. Be gracefully transparent. As you're building, size matters, age matters, people matter, specificity matters. As you're growing, strategic partnerships, channel partnerships can be leveraged to create an unfair advantage. And these come through comfort, confidence, and trust. And as you're scaling, the tenets that you must uphold should be value, agility, size, and sophistication, and those can help differentiate you from your peers. Thank you again, Michael, Abhishek. Thank you, Mona, and to RegPack.
And thank you,
Thank you very
Antonio,
much,
for
guys,
once
and
again.
have a great day. And we are now going to the next session with Sabrina and Danielle. Bye bye.
Wonderful.
Bye.
Thank
Hey,
you.
everyone. Have a great day.